is up, guys? It's Dakota here, and welcome back to the Driven Mad channel. So, in today's video, we're going to be talking about my 2019 Camaro 1LE. And just kind of give you guys a performance review of this car. I'm up on one of my favorite roads. And so, real quick, we'll just go over some of the differences, some of the performance things you get that are different from a regular SS. So we're just going to skim through those real quick. So first off, you get massive wheels and tires front and rear. You got 285s in the front, 305s in the rear, and they are summer only performance tires from their Goodyear Eagle F1 supercar tires, the generation 3 of those tires. They are incredibly sticky. They give so much grip. So you get that. You also get larger brakes and bigger calipers as well. So you get Brembo brakes, 6 piston up front, 4 piston in the rear, as well as larger rotors. Then you also get additional transmission and oil cooling in this car, plus an electronically limited slip diff on this car. They can kind of control the amount of lock or unlock it has depending on your throttle input, your steering angle, and all that good stuff. Next, you also get specifically tuned suspension. So they come standard with the magnetic ride control, but it's not the same one that's in the regular SS that you can get as an option. This has been specifically tuned for this car. It has a little bit different damping settings and spring rates, and you also get stiffer bushings and different bearings in this car compared to the regular SS, as well as the real important thing here, it's only available in a manual transmission. So you get to have all of those extra goodies in a manual, so you get to be a little bit more engaged with the car. Now, first thing that I kind of want to get into about the performance of the car is, for any GM performance car, the thing they're known for is, oh, can you hear that? Is the engine. So this is the LT1 6.2 liter V8, naturally aspirated, makes 455 horsepower and 455 pound-feet of torque. Now, the real amazing thing about this engine, like the best part about it, is the way it delivers power. It's just all over the rev band. So you can be, like right now I'm at 2,500 RPM, second gear, and if I just put my foot down, like, you're immediately moving, immediately. So as soon as, and it carries throughout the entire rev range. Now, it doesn't rev very high for a lot of like sports cars nowadays, because the Camaro really now is more of a sports car than it is a muscle car. It's not just about straight line speed, and especially this car in particular, you know, it's got a bit more sports car about it. So it only revs about 6,500 RPM, so not very high, but it makes power from the entire rev range. So as you're reaching that 6,500 RPM, it's still pulling. There's no drop off. It's not like, oh, well, I'm at 5 grand, I might as well shift. It still pulls even like all the way to the red line, even though it's not a very high red line. And also, not just the power, but the torque of these things. I mean, it's just, you just flex your big toe and immediately you start moving. Like that's less than a quarter throttle, and it's just, you immediately get pushed back in the seat every time. Oh, hold on. Yeah, the torque on this thing is just, it's awesome, because that's what you feel. It feels fast. It's seat of the pants type of fast. As soon as you flex your foot on the throttle, you move. Doesn't matter what gear you're in. So I'm in 5th gear, 2,000 RPM. I put my foot down and we're moving. So that's one of the nice characteristics of this engine. Yes, they don't rev very high and rev up very fast and drop off revs very fast, but just the power band and having power anywhere and everywhere in the RPM range is just one of the nicest things to have, because then you always know you've got power. You might not necessarily have to shift if you don't need to, because you've got the torque to carry you through these turns and dual mode exhaust with the 1LE. That's standard. Normally when I drive this car, I have the rear seats folded down because then you just get a then you just get an even better sound throughout the cabin. You know, but for now I'm keeping them up just for the sake of this video. But I'll let you guys hear the difference between with them up and with them down real quick. So now that you guys have heard that, we've talked a little bit about the engine. Let's move on to the 1LE's like signature piece, which is really the handling. The handling in this car. I mean, it's so hard to find this car's limits. I have yet to do it on public roads, and I push it pretty hard. So we got a turn coming up here, so. Swift, and it doesn't phase the car. The chassis is just so balanced, and there's no body roll. Now you've got a couple of different modes. You've got tour mode, which is your more relaxed, you know, throttle response is a bit more relaxed, the steering, the exhaust valves stay closed unless you're going full throttle, and then the suspension's in its softest setting. Even in tour mode, it's still very well controlled. Sport mode, suspension wise, it's really kind of hard to tell the difference. Every now and then you can on a really bumpy piece of road. Other than that, it's kind of hard to tell, but you do notice the steering weight stiffens up and gets even more precise, and then the exhaust valves open up as well, and the throttle response is just a little crisper, just that little bit crisper than it is in tour mode. And then you've got track mode, which fully stiffens up the suspension. The steering gets even heavier, throttle response gets a little quickened, and the exhaust stays open fully. You've also got a couple of different ways to mess with the traction control, because you get performance traction management. So you can put it in this setting called competitive mode, and when you do that, it kind of dials back some of the traction controls where it'll allow you to have some fun, but you're not going to kill yourself, you're not going to spin out, and you don't feel it really intervene. So you can be really hammering this car around a turn, and you're never going to feel it intervene if you have it in competitive mode. It just kind of keeps the car there and makes you feel like you're driving awesome. So let's talk a bit more about the steering feel. Now, I'm kind of I daily drive a Jeep, so I'm used to steering that is super relaxed, very vague, very light. And one of my favorite things about this car is just how direct the steering is. I mean, every little input, the car just reacts to it. One, because it's got those 285s up front, and two, it's just dialed in so well. I mean, any little input, the car just reacts to it. And the weighting on it is very nice. In track mode, if I go ahead and put it in track mode here, it weights up pretty good. The weight of the steering is just, it feels a little artificial. But it's very, very good. The only criticism I really have with the steering is not as communicative as I'd like. I'd like a little bit more feedback, a little bit more feel, you know, so I can really kind of know what those front tires are doing. That's probably my only complaint with the steering, is that I just wish there was a little bit more feedback, something a bit more tangible to have in your hands when you're really pushing this thing hard. As far as the handling goes, like I said, in track mode, I mean, there is no body roll. It is so flat. Like it's not even funny. There's just no body roll. The seats hold you in phenomenally. Oh, and those pops every time you get off the gas, it's just like making popcorn back there. See if you guys can hear it real quick. Probably can't with those seats up, but it just sounds so good. But the handling is just next level. Like I've driven a couple different cars. I've driven a 570 GT, a Lamborghini Huracan, the GT, naturally, being the softer version of the 570, when I was driving that and pushing that a little bit, it had a bit more body roll. Again, it is the GT. The steering was better, but this car feels a bit more planted and sure-footed than that GT did. The GT felt a bit softer. But this car is just so well sorted. Even if you're pushing it hard over bumps and you got it in, like, say, sport mode, it maintains its compliance, even though it's kind of undulating and things like that, even when you're pushing it hard. And that just gives you, as a driver, more confidence to push the car, to drive harder, you know, brake a little bit later in those turns. And speaking of brakes, they work. They they definitely do their job, that's for sure. I mean, and you would expect them to, because they're gigantic, and you got 6 piston calipers up front. The new Corvette doesn't have 6 piston calipers up front. It's got 4 pistons. And speaking of Corvettes, you know, one of the things that this car really pointed out to me was this car, brand new, stickered for $46,000. This particular one, it's a 1SS 1LE. And if you were to get a brand new C7 Stingray with some decent options, you know, equivalent to this, you're looking at about 65 to 70. And I gotta say, after driving this, and I've driven a few Corvettes, you're not getting anything performance-wise. Like, is it a little lighter? Yeah. But as far as handling goes, for $25,000, that's not what you're paying for. You're not paying for handling. So if you want a performance car that'll handle really well for $46,000, I mean, what else can you buy? Now, some of you are going to say, you know, oh, well, you know, I'll get the Mustang track pack. But even that still feels softer and a bit spongy. Now the GT350 is another story, but I mean, for $46,000, there's not much you can buy that'll do this type of performance brand new. And we're talking 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. The quarter mile, I think it's in the 12s. I mean, it handles phenomenally. So it's really, it kind of makes you think, like, man, you're only paying, if you buy a Corvette, the C7 at least, you were really just paying for the Stingray. You were just paying just to say you have a Corvette. But as far as handling goes, the regular C7, nothing. It's nothing on this. This is definitely better. It's more planted. It's more sure-footed, and it actually sounds better. You would think, having the same engine and built by the same company, that it would sound the same. Whatever the Camaro guys did with the exhaust, this is way better. What's funny, what's crazy about this car is that, I mean, it's a Camaro, but yet it's doing performance numbers that supercars of 8 years ago were doing or were not doing. Like an Audi R8, back when it came out, you know, about 10 years ago, had 420 horsepower, did 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds. This thing is a half a second quicker to 60. It weighs more, and it's a Camaro. Like, it's a Camaro that is doing stuff that Camaros shouldn't be doing. I mean, it's crazy how well this thing handles and how planted it feels, even at crazy high speeds. Talking a bit more about some of the negatives of the car is being the track edition, being the track version of the car. I would kind of like it to feel a bit more raw. This car is very daily drivable. You put it in tour mode, you just cruise down the highway, it's quiet, it's compliant, and it's easy to drive, and the seats are super comfortable. And for being the track version, you know, I was kind of hoping, whoa, he's hauling that bike. I was kind of hoping that it'd be a bit more raw, a bit more on the edge, you know, like a 458 Speciale type, you know, to where you feel a bit more vibrations and it's not as muted. This car still, while having all these excellent qualities about it, still gives you a fairly muted driving experience. Like I talked about, the steering feel and even the throttle response can be a little delayed at times. Even in track mode, it's not quite as crisp and aggressive as I might like it. So that would probably be one of my only complaints about the car, is that as far as drama and theater and feeling like an occasion when you get in this car, it's a little lackluster on that part, just because it's just a very good overall car. Can you buy faster cars? Absolutely. Are there faster cars in a straight line? Absolutely. But as far as the performance goes, for the money, for 46 grand, brand new, I mean, what can you buy that'll do that plus handle extremely well? I mean, you know, you could get a Shelby, but a Shelby's $10,000 more if you can get one for sticker to get into one. So, I mean, it's a phenomenal car, and I've been really happy with it over the past 3,400 miles that I've put on it. Haven't even had its first oil change yet. Overall, guys, super solid car, and I think if you were to buy one, especially if it was to be your daily driver, I think you'd be extremely happy with it, because it's going to give you great performance, still be fairly comfortable, and you're not going to have to spend $60,000 or $70,000 to get really great performance. And on a track, this thing would just be a delight. I mean, I've yet to do it, but I really want to, because it'd just be an awesome experience. So anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a like and subscribe. And if you do subscribe, make sure to click that bell notification so you get notified for more videos. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.